So my intention was to do a video where I went back to 2023, pulled three comparable teams to what the Saints are trying to do in 2024, look at the numbers, and come up with a breakout candidate or a monster year candidate that the Saints are going to have in player that's going to have in 2024. And I drew four conclusions. One, numbers don't lie. Two, numbers don't tell the whole truth. Three, so you got to keep your numbers in context. And four, man, they can really piss you off sometimes. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saint. So, what I did was I went to NFL.com, started pulling information from 2023 for passing yards per team, rushing yards per team. Basically, what I was looking for is just some kind of way to compare San Francisco, who we're modeling our new wide zone West Coast style offense off of what they've been doing very successfully for about 5 or 6 years now under Kyle Shanahan. But he's really had three star pupils, I guess you could say, that was under him while he's been in Frisco. Mike McDaniel, the head coach at Miami's entering his third year. Dolphins have a pretty good offense. Bobby Slowick entering his second year with the Texans. Had a pretty good rookie year along with his quarterback, CJ Stroud, who was also a rookie. But he was with Shanahan from 2017 to 2022 in various roles. Ended up the passing game coordinator when D'Amico Ryans was hired from Frisco's defense coordinator for head coach. He brought Slowick over as the OC. And now, of course, Clint Kubiak, who's got hired away, also was the passing game coordinator last year for Kyle Shanahan to come in and run our offense. So the goal of this whole exercise was let's look at some numbers the best that we can, remembering the tenets I was talking about, especially the first two. They don't lie, but they don't numbers, but they don't always tell the whole truth. And just kind of see what we're kind of looking at. And in team passing for the year for 2023, I was really just looking at the attempts, sort of like treating it sort of like a rushing attempt. Just want to know every time they tried to throw the ball, these teams, kind of a total result in production with the yardage and the touchdowns, things like that. And also kind of trying to gauge efficiency. So, looking at yards per attempt and how many big plays, 20 plus, 40 plus they had in the passing game. And in the first column, everything is sorted by least attempts to most attempts. And the number I have in parentheses is their overall NFL ranking. So actually, the 49ers attempted the least passes in the NFL in 2023. But when you compare these four teams, the face value, especially when you're looking at total, like total yards, TD to interception ratio, even their quarterback rating, none of it's really bad. The 49ers and Dolphins are clearly the two better offensive teams of the four. And when you kind of look at their efficiency, when you're looking at yards per attempt, yeah, 9.3. That kind of surprised me that they're that high. But the Dolphins, 8.3. And you kind of see the Texans and the Saints, who not quite good as offensively, 7.7 and 7. Not horrible, but you probably want to get it up towards that 8 yards or more attempt. And when you're looking at their 20 plus and their 40 plus plays in passing game, clearly Frisco's the best at it. Miami's pretty good. Texans turned out to be better than I expected them to be. And honestly, we were a little better than I thought we were, especially in 40 plus. We're kind of hanging in there with those guys. So overall, when you look at it, you're like, doable because we're kind of getting the same production, maybe not quite as efficient, but generally all four of these teams are kind of within shouting distance of each other when you kind of break this down, or I should say within shouting distance of chasing Frisco and Miami to a lesser degree. I can go to Rush and things change big time because Saints and 49ers had it shocked me. We were 23rd overall in the NFL in rushing attempts, and 49ers 25th most. So, but when you're looking at efficiency, you're like yards per carry. They're almost at 5. We're barely scratching over 3.5. Just not going to cut it. They're doubling us in touchdowns. They're almost tripling us in 20+ yard runs. We had no 40s. The Texans in a very similar role as we were, both production and especially in efficiency. They not a whole lot better than we were. Dolphins were very good at it. So now all of a sudden you kind of get in a little different range of numbers. Total yards. We're lagging. Texans and the Saints clearly lagging behind what the 49ers and Dolphins can do. Yards per carry, well behind, and touchdowns and big plays. It's not even close. So now you're kind of thinking, what's going on here? Is this, and where context matters, do we need to start talking about offensive line, play calling, schemes, all of the above? In a weird sort of way, yes. In a weird sort of way, this is where you where numbers piss you off. Basically, what's about ready to happen. So what I did was I said, well, let me drill down. Now that we kind of know where we're standing on passing game, I wouldn't say we're on equal footing, all 4 teams. But like I said, they were all within sight of each other, kind of depending on numbers. Don't lie, but they don't always tell the truth. So kind of depending on what numbers you want to pick and choose to look at. And I didn't even put them all in this. If you go to NFL.com, there's even more where you can kind of play around with it. Some big differences in the rushing game. So what I did was I said, well, let me go I'm going to combine carries and catches. Call them touches. So I want combined touches. I want the 5 players that have the highest combined touches on each of these 4 teams. I want to go ahead and look at their total yards. Definitely want to know their touchdowns, how many times they put points on the board while they're being productive. But I also wanted to add them all together. Total touches for the team of the 5, the total yards, and get an average per touch, average yard per touch, which is in red, which gets real interesting. As you look at the 49ers, you know who the usual suspects are. They're up at the top, McCaffrey and Samuels. No brainer there. Mitchell was a bit of a surprise, but it's understandable because look at McCaffrey's 339 total touches. The poor guy needs a break every now and then, so the backup running back comes in. He's effective. Maybe if you could call him effective and efficient, but he's not exactly hurting you if you're Frisco, when he's in the game, trying to give McCaffrey a blow. Then you get Ayuk and Kittles. Saints would love to have either one or if not both those guys on this team right now. Miami, 3 running backs, 2 receivers. Again, Mostert, Hill, and A-Chain, they're top 2 running backs, they're top receiver. Basically hogging the touches, hogging the production, hogging the touchdowns. Waddle is nothing to sneeze at, what he's thrown up there. It's just, unfortunately, the guy on the other side is Tyreek Hill. One of the best receivers in the game. So, yeah, the number 2 over there is going to get squeezed a little bit. But when you're looking at 72, 1,026, and 4 touchdowns, not exactly poor numbers for number 2. And then Wilson is Jeff Wilson, the 3rd running back, who obviously is gonna come in for some depth purposes, but he is so fast. McDaniels loved him even when he had him in Frisco, when McDaniels was the OC over there. And I know they do scheme some stuff up for this guy because he can, like all the 4 above him, they can all run. They can all get it. Texans, you get into this way the weirdness starts coming in. I think what you're looking at there has a lot to do with CJ Stroud being a rookie, the head coach and the offensive coordinator coming from Frisco, where they witnessed how Shanahan handled suddenly having a rookie quarterback in Brock Purdy, who was unplanned because you had 2 guys in front of him get hurt and suddenly Mr. Irrelevant. He's starting games and leading you to the playoffs. And I think they kind of use that as a blueprint. Scale it back a little bit. Don't give him too much too soon. Don't make the mistake a lot of NFL teams do when they, in Stroud's case, a high first round pick as a quarterback that's supposed to be the savior. Roll him out there, but don't give him the support. Don't um, give him the play calling, the structure, everything that goes involved to make sure he has a chance to succeed, and he doesn't start popping up failures that are going to just come around because it doesn't matter how good he is. He's still an NFL rookie, and there's going to be pains involved with that. Design your offense to try to lessen that pain as much as possible to keep giving yourself a chance to win. And I really believe that's what the Texans did. Why their two running backs lead their touches category. And much like Elijah Mitchell for Frisco, two solid NFL backs. I mean, they're not terrible. They're not elite. They're not going to scare the bejesus out of anybody. They'll probably never make the Hall of Fame, probably never be all pros. But they're still solid. They're still good. They can hurt you in the run game. Nico Collins, young receiver that stepped up, balled out as a one. Schultz, a veteran tight end, throwing up some good numbers. Tank Dow basically only played 10 games last year. Officially 11, but in week 13, he broke his leg very early in the game for all intents and purposes. He missed that whole game. So putting up fantastic numbers when you're thinking about it. He really only played about 10 games this season. And I think a lot of what you see there, now that Stroud is in the league a full year, they brought in more weapons in Houston. Diggs, Mixon, now handling the number one running back and receiver, number one running back roles. I think you're going to see a lot of the top five production. Obviously, the names are going to change, but it's going to start going up into the realms of the 49ers and Dolphins. And the reason why is all three of those teams are doing what we've been talking about a lot. They scheme up ways to get playmakers on the field, in space, get the ball to them as easily and as painlessly as they can. Nothing exotic, although they do some exotic with motions and reverses and stuff. But basically, the concept is get them in space with the ball. Let them go make plays. We want to make it as easy on our side of the ball, but present it in such a way that it's so complicated for the defensive side of the ball. A lot of times they do the work for us to get guys open in the passing game or blow a run assignment where somebody's going to, a McCaffrey or a Mostert is going to get the ball and suddenly find themselves running wide open downfield for big yards. But the most important thing I think you can see in all four or the top three is either their very best players or leading that team in touches, in production. 49ers and Dolphins. And look, at 8.7 and 8.5 an average per touch. Pretty much when their top five guys touch the ball, it's almost a first down they're getting for you. It's pretty close. They're getting you to second or third and short. Texans, like I said, a little bit skewed because I think they were using those two running backs to kind of ease Stroud into it, and he grew into it. And then you start seeing, it actually came out kind of hot because he had some very good weeks early, but he never really had the rookie pains. And he had a lot of good with the two in the running game and some good receivers. He had a lot of help. And I think Slovic called games with that in mind to help him out even further. And I think all that's out the window. They'll probably, much like Frisco did with Purdy in year two, they're going to loosen some reins there, and you're going to really see some bigger numbers come out of a lot of people there. But the Saints, oh Lord, looking at this, I don't know if you've noticed while I was talking, if anybody was staring down at the bottom of that list, but how in the hell is Williams appearing second on this list for us with touches at 134, 342 yards, and a bullshit touchdown that I probably should have left that column as zero, really. If you could magically right now take 60 touches away from him and distribute those 60 some kind of way to the three names under, and Hill, Olavi, and Shaheed. How many more games did we win last year? I'm going to say at least one. I'm going to say we're in the playoffs. You can take 60 useless, non-productive touches away from your second guy on your list, and give them the three guys. Look what they did behind them. I think you're going to win more games. I really do. Now, again, context matters. We're not breaking this down game by game exactly how it happened. Injuries, not factoring in offensive line play. I get all that. That's fine. You don't really need to consider all that stuff because all the players on this list are basically dealing with the same thing. 4 of them gave you times enough production to win the game. One of them didn't, and he's second on the list. So what this taught me was threw right out the window of me trying to figure out who from last year is going to slide into a maybe not a McCaffrey or Samuel role, but maybe a Mostert, maybe a Hill, maybe McCaffrey, maybe Samuel. I was kind of hoping maybe to get just kind of looking around and comparing what the teams did as teams in rushing and in passing game, and then look at individuals. Maybe we can kind of suss this out a little bit. It skews our number so badly to have Jamal Williams being second in touches with 134 for 342. Boy, I think that's a big killer on that 6.3 average you got there. So this is the third time I've tried to shoot this part of the video. They kept getting worked up and just rolling in anger that Carmichael couldn't figure out what Saints fans were talking about. But this is the first time I've actually added the damn numbers up and put them on a page where Taysom needs to touch the ball more. Shaheed needs to touch the ball more. Shaheed needs to touch it creatively, not just in the passing game, much like Taysom Hill needs to touch it, not just in the Taysom package. And if you can get those two guys rolling and open up, help the offensive line out, help Carr out, stretch the field, get some bodies moving away from the line of scrimmage. You can't run the ball, but you might be able to start doing it. If you can get guys out in space, and if that happens in Olave over the top, and even Shaheed over the top, vertical with Carr, we saw last year a couple times where they could hook up on some beautiful plays downfield. Being able to get more of that. Carr having the time to do it, to get the ball downfield. I think it's going to happen if you're letting Jamal Williams touch it 20 more times than Hill. Oh my God, it's 50 more than Olave, which is going to be tough because Olave's catches 87 pretty good. But man, if you could slide 4 or 5 of those touches to him and Shaheed, more catches, get him involved in the running game. Even if you have to line up in the backfield and toss pitch it to him, I don't care. Too much speed, too much playmaking ability. Needs to be on the field, needs to be higher on that list. Go look at the top 2 teams. And I'm speculating the third one of this group from that Shanahan tree is going to join the first 2. So they brought in 2, like I said, 2 huge playmakers. Stroud's got a year under his belt. So does Slowick as an offensive coordinator for that matter. I'm expecting bigger things to trend in the right direction there. So when it flat comes down to it, there's just nothing there that goes, I can draw a parallel. I can go watch video of what they did here and what they did. It's kind of my intent. Not when our best weapons weren't out there. We know who they are. But really, Kamara and Taysom were at their best, obviously, when Sean was here years ago. They haven't, for one reason or another, really touched their best. I think they both can. I think they both will. But it's been a little bit of a down, for various reasons, down production years for both of them. Olave and Shaheed, I think there's just so much untapped potential on those two that the last group of coaches didn't know how to tap into, didn't have the foggiest clue, and can look at it and go, yeah, we got to go with Jamal Williams over these guys. God, that defense has just had to just been giggling gleefully going, the other thing that you can kind of glean from the number of touches, say the guys in Miami or the guys in Frisco are getting, is the fact, unlike what in the past few years, what we don't like to do, they like to go ahead and go, hey, these are our 3, 4, or 5 top guys. Most of the time, you're going to have to deal with all of them on the field at the same time. We're not going to give you a break. We're not going to say, well, Kamara, Hill, and Olave is our three best players, so we want to split all the snaps up between them. It seems like that's what the Saints have been doing for the last few years. Defense is going, thank you for not having us have to worry about all three of them. Frisco's quite the opposite. When you think about how many times you watch them play, and you're going to see McCaffrey, Samuels, Kittles, Ayuk all on the field, and a lot of times defense is pulling their hair out. Kyle Juszczyk has a big catch or a big run, or in the past, Ray McLeod, or any of those guys. So you're even thinking about along those same lines, you run an offense like they do, where you can get guys in space like the three of those teams do, and they can make things happen in space like most of their players can. Defense is in a bind. And then all of a sudden, let me throw this name at you because I was a little upset draft night. I'm warming up to Mr. Bud Means. Sounds like speed, ability to make plays. So I'm just thinking, the 4-3-4-4 guy seems to be about where he's at. Out on the field with an Olave, with a Shaheed, with a Taysom, with an Alvin. Who do you think the defense is least worried about of that five? Who could potentially hurt him the most? He may be the fastest guy we got on the field. Just saying. What I finally learned in the conclusion of all this, I obviously I didn't get what I was intending to get out of this. I'm not even going to say that Pete Carmichael is the worst offensive coordinator ever. I think we all knew. This just confirms. But what I'm getting out of this is, I think with this offensive scheme that we're trying to implement coming in, what it does best is gives opportunity to playmakers to go make plays. Simple as that, right? Sounds easy. I know it's not. No, it's hard. If it was easy, we'd all be NFL offense coordinators. But I get it. I get that it's not easy. That context does matter. There's some other issues going on. You can almost look. I don't know Frisco, Miami's offensive lines personally. I can almost guarantee you they're better than the Saints were last year. So that's where a lot of this is coming from. I can probably guess the Texans offensive line at least played better, maybe a little better than we, but probably a lot better than we did with maybe. And all of that does matter. But everybody's kind of playing under the same conditions in a weird sort of way. Even if a great offensive line, yeah, I get it. But you got a lot of mouths to feed in Frisco, a lot to feed Miami, and they managed to feed them like they're going out of style. So they can keep finding opportunities for those guys to touch the ball and do stuff. Make stuff happen. What I'm looking forward to after kind of drilling through this is going, yeah, let's cause stress on the defense. Let's see if we can't have multiple guys on the field, multiple playmakers, multiple times a game, all on the field at the same time, stressing the hell out of defense, making life a little easier on the offensive line and on Derek Carr. See if we can hit some big plays. See if we can throw up some Frisco and Miami numbers occasionally. I don't think you're going to be able to do it for 17 games like they can. Not now, but eventually it could be possible. Look, I'm going to sum all this up with basically, I really wish I could give you a breakout player. It just weirdly took a different turn looking at all this going, I think we were killing our own players' ability to make plays the last couple of years. Not only were we not helping it, bad enough we weren't helping. It was almost like through stupidity, we were actively stopping it ourselves. The defense didn't have to do a lot of times much. That being said, and in context again, while I was going through this and not really, I would admit I'm not really stressing the importance of offensive line play. Let's do it now. It's very important. And if the Saints don't fix their offensive line issues, So the conversation's moot. We're not going to do anything. It's going to be a bad year. I think they can. I think they have the personnel in here to make the offensive line go from bad to average, maybe. If we had an average off NFL offensive line last year, because I don't think anybody would even suggest we did. I think we all know it's kind of bad. If we had an average, can we win one more game, make the playoffs? Maybe two. Yeah. I think we can get at least that far to average, maybe knocking the door on good. That'll help a lot. And that's going to be part of the overall picture of what Kubiak needs to do. It's got to be the scheme, the weekly game plan, the personnel on the field, like we're talking about. Let's get all the studs out there as many times as we can during the game, see what happens, and calling the game on game day. Huge. Let's have a rhyme to reason why we're trying to do stuff. So I swear to God, at times last year, the last couple of years, even sometimes Sean, the last couple of years with him, it's like grab bag guessing right out of pulling them out of a hat sometimes. It just seems so weird. Not, I don't know, just not with a plan of what we were trying to accomplish, but especially the last 2 years. Because when it boils down to, I think the biggest takeaway that you can have in all this is, and I'm going to use healthy and I'm going to use happy to describe all of our players. Got to keep them healthy, and we can't have dissension and all that kind of stuff that was going on last year that just hopefully we will never have to talk about again because it'll never happen again. But healthy and happy, Kamara and Taysom and Shaheed and Olave, they all can have breakout slash type monster years. I mean, for the first time ever, I don't see why we couldn't see Taysom Hill throw up 1,300 combined yards, double digit touchdowns, rushing receiver, and maybe kick in a little passing yards in there. Why not? Kubiak's called him out. We don't have a position designation for him. He's an offensive weapon. That's how we're planning on to use him. He would be my guess for breakout just for that reason alone. But I think any of those guys, for the 5 guys that led this team in total touches last year, hey, they all are capable of doing exciting stuff. But let's talk about Kendre Miller. Bob Means, we mentioned him a little while ago. Don't forget Juwan Johnson. Hopefully we get him healthy. Lord, A.T. Perry. We have guys all over the place. We can come up with 8 or 9 guys that I think are in the right situation, but more importantly, the right opportunity to have a breakout year. Young guy to have a breakout and a monster year. That would be wonderful too. But it starts with the opportunity. It ends with them actually showing up and taking advantage of that opportunity, doing what they're supposed to do out on the field. And I'm pretty sure most, if not all of them, are going to be capable of doing that. I'm pretty sure the guy who's running the show now is capable of doing all the stuff he needs to do to give him that opportunity. That's the thing we need to have these breakout offensive players, these breakout offensive games. That synergy that we haven't had in several years. And I going all the way back to Sean, I don't think we had it his last couple. Where everything comes together, where everything done off the field, so to speak, works its way all the way through the week, all the way through the scheme, all the way through the planning, everything to show up on game day where everybody's doing their job and we get the results we need. They, again, maybe reading a little too much in basic numbers, but I don't see how you can do what like Frisco and Miami are doing without all that happening. And I don't think you could take a team that was as bad as Houston was, even on the strength of a high draft franchise type quarterback, what everybody seems to think Stroud's going to be. If that alone is enough to turn your ship around and get you into the playoffs. Maybe it is. But I think a lot of this is you have a revolutionary scheme that these guys are adjusting, changing, evolving faster than most defenses can. And they just keep putting their guys in great positions and give them the opportunity to make plays. So if you think with me, Taysom's the best bet for that breakout slash monster year out of this, let's call it 8 or 9 guys we could all throw into the mix. Give me the thumbs up. If you think it didn't Taysom, give me the thumbs up. Then go down in the comments, tell me who it is. I'd probably agree with you because I really, really do. If everything clicks together, and I don't know if it'll happen in the first year, but if it does, I think that any list of those guys could just step into one of those roles where they suddenly find themselves getting the ball a lot and be able to make plays with it. So I'm going to try my best to never mention the words Pete Carmichael again or offensive coordinator in the same sentence. Anything, I'm hoping this is the last time any of that ever comes up because from this point forward, I want to see an OC that's going to do the stuff that produces the results when we were looking at earlier that you see next to Frisco's name, next to Miami's name. And I'm predicting you're going to start seeing next to Houston's name starting in 2024. So with that, thank you for joining. Till we see each other next time, I'm Tim. Peace out. Who dat?